Hello, and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita, and we're in the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore, 180 Orchard Street in the Lower East Side. It's a great bookstore, a lot of titles for you to check out. There's a cafe in the back, and they have events. You should check their calendar out. This is episode 60. Just so you know. And my guest today is Mary Morris. Mary is the author of 17 books, including many novels, 5 travel memoirs, and 3 collections of short stories. Her work has been translated into many languages. She has received the Rome Prize in Literature and the Ansfield Wolf 2016 Award for Fiction. The Ansfield Wolf Award goes to a book that addresses racism and cultural diversity, and she's very proud to have been the recipient of this award. Born in the Midwest, Mary taught for many years at Princeton University and Sarah Lawrence College. She lives in Brooklyn with her family, a dog, and a parrot, and likens her home to living on a pirate ship. Though she writes both fiction and nonfiction, Morris is most interested in stories. As she describes her new novel, The Red House, she likes to say that there are some stories you choose and others that choose you. This one, she says, chose her. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and let's get that music out of there. Your book, The Red House, we're going to be talking we're going to spend most of our time talking about that book. You were nice enough to give me the book before the episode, which is great. Sometimes I've interviewed people and I didn't really know their material that well. It's challenging. Mm-hmm. I am a notorious slow reader. I don't have a great attention span like a lot of people these days, but I read your book in 4 days.
That's
good. A lot, that's quick for me.
No, that's good.
Well, I took it out with me to Montauk. I spent a couple days in Montauk.
Right.
So we're going to delve into the book. I have a lot of questions about the book.
Okay.
But let's just get to know you. I like to talk to my guests to find out how they became who they are as an artist, a writer, and so on. Mm-hmm. So you grew up in Illinois?
I grew up in Illinois. I had a normal suburban childhood, and then I went east to college. My parents were quite a bit older when they had children.
Okay.
And my mother wanted to travel. She did not like being a suburban housewife at all. She was very, our first dog she named Renoir because she always wanted a Renoir and she wanted to go to France. And she obviously never got a Renoir and she never went to France. So getting out of the Midwest was very important to her, and she dragged me with her quite a bit. And then I went east to college.
Right.
And there was a certain point in college, to be honest with you, I had a dream. It was a very strange dream. And after the dream, I decided that I was going to move to New York and be a writer. So I was about 24 years old.
So growing up, were you interested in writing growing up?
My third grade teacher, Miss Dorsch, I literally remember this. If I was working on a story, she would let me stay in from recess, and I was often writing. And she wrote in my third grade evaluation that I was going to be a writer.
Wow.
And I actually still have that evaluation, and my parents always kind of held on to that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I always loved stories. My dad was a great storyteller.
Your father worked for an architect and engineer?
He and his brother had an architecture and engineering firm in
Right.
Chicago. And he wasn't trained. He was a businessman. He did the business side. His brother was the design part of it.
Right.
But,
do you have siblings?
I have a brother.
Brother, okay.
Yeah.
Was your brother into the arts at all?
No, my brother was into tennis.
Oh.
And he coached me for a long time until I asked him what I could do to improve my game, and he said take up golf. Mm-hmm. So that was, my brother and I are very close.
Does he live in Brooklyn?
My brother lives in Texas.
Okay.
And it was funny because I was down there recently, and I didn't really know what the politics of my family was anymore, but we're on the same page, so it was okay. But I was a little nervous about Texas.
I'm just always curious I like to talk to my guests about their childhood, and because my parents were Depression age people.
Yeah, mine too.
And, children of immigrants and grew up, pretty poor, especially my father. They didn't really develop time. They didn't have time, and they weren't that interested in the arts.
Right.
And most of my siblings weren't either. So my first love was music, and I pursued that my whole life.
Right.
So writing became a later thing. So I'm always just curious where something comes from
Right.
when I talk to my guests. So like you said, third grade, you mentioned third grade teacher saying you were a good writer.
Right.
But when did you know that's really what you wanted to do?
Okay, so I've kept diaries and journals since I was a kid, and I have every single one, Pete. I've never lost one.
Wow.
I have
I'm always jealous of that. I've had other guests say they did that.
I have like 80 of them.
Wow.
And I just started keeping, I had a complicated childhood. My mother was an extremely gifted seamstress. She had a degree in fashion design from the Art Institute of Chicago. Mm-hmm. And what does a woman with a degree in fashion do in suburban Illinois?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So, she was very frustrated, and my father was very musical. So I grew up with, I did another novel called The Jazz Palace, which is kind of about my father as an amateur jazz musician.
Right.
So I grew up with a lot of arts.
So you grew up with the arts. Sorry.
Yeah, I grew up with the arts, and I grew up with privilege and, and all that. But I also had a complicated childhood. And, to go back to the question about when I always wrote, I always loved it. I didn't know if I could be a writer and what that would mean. Mm-hmm. I certainly didn't know if earning a living was anything that would ever happen from this, So it was a lot of questions, and also it was a time, when women, I felt I needed to kind of get a degree in teaching or something like that.
So that's what you did.
Well, so I was in graduate school. I went to Tufts, and then I went to Harvard in graduate school in Comp Lit. I was going to do a PhD in Comp Lit, and then I thought I'd be a professor.
What's Comp Lit?
Comparative literature.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I was a romance language major.
I see.
So I speak pretty much all the romance languages. I speak a lot of romance languages.
How many?
And stuff like that. I speak French, Italian, Spanish fluently.
Wow.
Really fluently, and then I speak some German and a couple other. I can get by in a couple others. But, when we used to take these tests, these aptitude tests, and I never did very well except the linguistic part. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was one exam they gave us that was in Kurdish, and we had an hour to learn Kurdish grammar and vocabulary and then translate a passage, and I scored off the charts on that.
Wow.
So I don't know why I have a strong linguistic thing.
Right.
But getting back to the question about being a writer, so I was always writing, and I just didn't know if anything would come of it. And then I guess, can I share my dream? Because I've written about it. So
this is your platform.
Right. So I was very unhappy in graduate school. I was in a relationship that had definitely hit a dead end. I was taking a class in Dante that I loved with an incredibly brilliant professor. And I fell asleep one hot summer afternoon, and I had this dream that I was walking down a street in Paris, and I saw a cafe, and Gertrude Stein and Fitzgerald and Hemingway were drinking Campari and soda. And I thought, well, if I want to be a writer, I need to go into that cafe, because then I'll be a writer.
Right.
And the name of the cafe, which was written in Italian, was Lasciati ogni speranza voi che entrare, which is leave behind all hope ye who enter here, which is what's written over the gates of hell.
Right.
So that was a strange name for a cafe, but this was a dream. So I walked into the cafe, and I ordered a Campari and soda because I thought I would become a writer. And instead I fell into a deep, dark hole in the middle of the earth, and there was nothing there, and I was lost. And 6 pallbearers arrived with a coffin, and they put the coffin in front of me, and they left. And I knew that my fate, I know, it was a very weird dream.
Right.
And I knew that whatever my future was, it was in the coffin.
Huh.
I had to open it. And I opened it, and it turned into a roll-top desk and paper for eternity. And I woke up. I dropped out of Harvard. I had been accepted to Columbia for another program. I wrote them. They said, come. I left Boston, and I moved to New York, and my parents kept calling and saying, when are you coming back? And I said, I think I'm going to be a writer. And I'm going to, And then I dropped out of Columbia, too.
Yeah, I was curious because I noticed that you graduated in 1977, and I was wondering...
From Columbia.
Yeah. So I was wondering how that makes sense, why,
Right.
the graduation was that, delayed. Not delayed.
Right.
You were busy.
I was busy.
But
and
you switched
Right.
gears.
Well, I never did my dissertation.
Right,
I just, at a certain point, I realized that it was not... And I was sitting in a workshop, in a class, and we were reading Madame Bovary, and the teacher said, why do you think Flaubert made Madame Bovary a physically attractive woman? And all these very complicated intellectual answers were coming, and I said, well, I think he did it so that the guy would be attracted to her. Like, maybe it was like that.
Right.
And they thought I was just a complete Philistine, and I didn't understand, Derrida, French constructionism, or whatever they were trying to teach me. And then I just dropped out.
Huh.
So I've walked away from a lot.
Right.
But I've never walked away from writing. Or
Right.
writing's never walked away from me.
Well, you've accomplished quite a bit.
Yeah.
And your first book came out in 1979, so that was only 2 years after you graduated.
Yes, but those were stories I had been writing
I see.
for years.
Right. Okay.
Years and
it's
years.
a collection of stories that you know.
Right.
Right.
Right. I had 32 short stories that I had tried to get published, and nobody would publish them.
I see.
And then David Godine published this very little collection of them and paid me very little money, and then it did extremely well, and it won the Rome Prize, and
Wow.
everything happened from that. Yeah.
Jeez, that's a pretty good start.
It was a good start. Yeah. I'd like to have a good finish.
Do you still
too,
have
but
a
it was
copy
good.
of the book?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it must
it's
be
a beautiful book.
I was going to ask you because that's a long time ago, and to see something you wrote that long ago could be what's a good word for it? Not shocking, but like you must feel good about it still because you had that much attention.
Yeah, and it also, they're good stories. I
Right.
mean, I stand by them, and look, we're in a bookstore, and, we've talked about this a little bit before. I mean, things come and go, and there are trends, and things come in and out of print, and whatever. But, if you're passionate about something, I've been reading a lot about longevity lately, just for fun. I mean, both of
Right.
my parents lived to be over 100, so.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
they both did.
Mine,
They're like,
mine lived into the 90s, but 100's pretty good.
yeah, they were like land tortoises, they just went on. Like Galapagos tortoises.
That's pretty
I think of
amazing.
them as- I know.
Wow.
It was crazy. But, and they were fine. I mean, they both died of old age. Why am I
Right.
talking about longevity.
Right.
So there are like three things that really help people's longevity, and one is your physical health, obviously, and the other is community, and the third is passion.
Right.
And I think if you have something you love to do it, because
Right.
I think it keeps you young and vital.
Well, I know that I remember a long time ago reading that the people that survived the concentration camps are the ones that, besides not being the obvious, not being put in a gas chamber,
Yes.
were the ones that were hopeful. They had something.
Victor
to
Frankl,
look, yeah,
Man's Search for Meaning.
yeah, right.
Right, the
That-
ones that believed in
Something, or had a dream, or wanted to keep living.
Right, or they had a loved one who they thought could be alive or
Right, exactly.
was safe somewhere.
Right.
So those were the people that survived, and that book had a lot of impact on me. I didn't mean to tell you what the book was, but I remember
Right.
reading Man's Search for Meaning,
Right.
and he talks about how under the most, what he found, he was in a concentration camp, what he found was that the people that had the will to live were the people
Right.
that had something to live for.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times, you hear about people finally retiring, and obviously we're both, in a place where we could be thinking about that.
I did it. I've done it. Thank you. I'm free.
Well, yeah, but you have this, so I mean,
I'll never stop writing.
Right. But you retired from teaching.
Yeah.
Well, you had a long run. When did you retire?
I retired a year and a half ago.
So you
It was
were a
hard.
teacher for was it
Many
40,
decades.
40 plus years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started in after the Vanishing Animals
Right, I
came
saw
out.
that, yeah.
So I really started teaching around.
You got a fellowship
78.
at Princeton after that book.
Yeah, well, before that book got me a National Endowment for the Arts grant, and I went to Mexico, and I lived in Mexico, and I worked on I worked on a few things, and and then I came back, and then I got a fellowship. Then I got the Rome Prize, and then I got a fellowship to Princeton. So I had a really good few years in there.
Right.
And a Guggenheim. It all happened at once, which,
Wow.
truthfully, knowing what I know now, I would have liked to have spread those things out a little bit. I could have used one, like, recently, or,
I
you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
it would be nice
Right.
if they weren't all...
Right.
Also, in a moment in my life where I didn't appreciate all the bounty that I had gotten at that moment, that was wonderful. But I think if I...
Did you think that it was supposed to be that way, or or was it just happening so fast you couldn't even think about
I
it?
just kept, honestly, and now it's going to sound, I just kept getting grants and fellowships, and I just went with it. It was a great...
How do you think your writing now compares to then? You've had a long life, so you've had more experiences, and maybe there's some. I don't know if you feel like you've gotten better technically. but then maybe you had youth and,
Passion.
wide eyes, passion.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
It's interesting. I've started something new. I feel like I've got so much knowledge now that I can bring all that to bear in the work. And I'm actually quite excited about what I'm working on now. I didn't know. It's sort of like falling in love. Like I didn't know if I'd fall in love again.
Right.
So it's that part is very exciting, and I'm finding that a lot of things I taught over the years, like I used to teach this class called Connected Collections about stories that make a novel, if that makes sense to you, like short stories that are connected, but also where it's called a novel, like Olive Kittredge is one, or The
Okay.
Dewbreaker by Edwidge Dandicott, Joan Silber, Ideas of Heaven, where there's some connection.
Right.
And
So you could have a group of short stories that actually could be a novel if there's
right,
somewhat
like if
connected.
the same character appears in every
okay.
story,
Right.
or it's all set in, like Winesburg, Ohio. It's all set Winsburg, Ohio. It's all set in one place.
Right. So these were just originally somebody writing a short story and they continued a thread and then that.
Right. So in other words, instead of a novel where it's a long narrative,
Right.
these are like separate
Yeah.
pieces that kind of connect in whatever way
Right.
they're going to connect.
So if you put them together, it's
Right.
a
So I
story about-
feel like a maturity now, and I'm excited again about work in a way that I haven't been since I finished this, because it's always when I finish the Red House. Let's see, it's always a year before publication, so it's like 2 years that
Wow. 2
you know.
years
So
ago.
2
Right.
years ago, yeah.
And how far are you into your next book?
I decided I'm just going to write to a first draft, and I've got 130 pages, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I'm actually thinking already like I'll have a draft by December, and then I'm going to be depressed again because I'm not sure what's going to come of it. I need to. But I think one thing that has happened with age is that I don't waste so much time on things that aren't going to work out. I kind of figure that out earlier.
Right.
Like if I'm not in it to win it, if I
Right.
don't feel kind of excited about it, I just
drop it.
I know it's not right.
Right.
Like if I'm doing too many puzzles on my phone,
Right.
and like I'm finding with the new work, it's been incredible because I can sit down at my desk and I look up and it's like lunchtime and I don't know where the morning went. So, so it feels. That's exciting to me, when you kind of lose track of time, and
Sure.
and it doesn't happen that often.
That means you're enjoying what you're doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And at this point, there's no other reason to do it, is there?
There's no.
Right.
No.
I mean, you're retired. I take it that you're somewhat comfortable in
We're
retirement?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
I mean,
fine?
we're fine.
Right.
We created. We annuitized my retirement, so we have fixed income.
Mm-hmm.
And we're fine. I mean, money's nice, so I wouldn't say no to extra money.
Of course.
But we can manage, and we travel. We go out to dinner, so
you're
we have
doing
a good time.
You have
yeah,
enough,
we're
enough
living
in your life that
yeah.
you're doing the things you like to do. So I'm going to
Exactly.
hold this back up again.
Thank you.
And it's available.
Bookstores,
Yeah,
or
bookstores,
Amazon,
right.
wherever you order.
So it's called The Red House.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask you, but I probably can't because I don't. So the story's kind of like.
You don't want to give it away. You don't want to no spoiler.
Right, because it's
Right.
you mentioned it, or it's mentioned in your wiki page or whatever. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a true crime to some
Yeah,
extent
it's a
story.
bit of a thriller.
Right, a thriller.
Yeah, so I don't want to.
Let's all.
Maybe it's helpful if I talk about, what you said in the bio is that, what I said is that there are stories that you choose and there are stories that choose you. And maybe if I talk a little bit about why I wrote the book,
Okay.
is that of interest to you?
Well,
at all?
let's just tell the listeners or viewers at least the germ of what the book's about.
Sure.
So the main character's name is Laura.
Right.
And her mother. So all this isn't going to ruin the story for somebody.
No. Right.
And her mother disappeared when she was 12
When Laura
years
was
old.
12.
Right, just disappeared.
Disappeared.
I love the details of her disappearance. That she made a sandwich and left the crust behind, and that image, that's an image to me.
Yeah.
But her car was in the driveway. I think the door was open.
Right.
It was almost like she just vanished. I think she even said her phone was still there.
Yeah, she left everything.
So everything,
behind.
it's almost like she just vanished and disappeared.
Yeah, she disappeared from the face of the earth.
Which is quite a way to start off a story. And then Laura is now an adult in her 30s, right?
Laura's actually the same. She's 42. She's
42,
the same age as her mother was when she disappeared. And that's on the first 2 pages. So that's not a...
So we're not giving in. And she decides to go to Italy to trace the roots of her mother.
Right.
Does she think she's going to find out? She kind of thinks she's going to find out what happened to her mother, maybe by going there. Maybe there'll be a clue or something.
Right. So,
the red house is... her mother had a room like in a basement or something.
Right.
Wasn't even the nicest room in the house. She could have had a better. This is
no. You're good.
Okay.
You're good. This is great.
And all
very
she
good.
did,
You're passing this exam very well.
And she loved painting so much, but she always painted the same thing.
Right.
It was the red house, and it had on the back she wrote, "We may never be."
In Italian, she writes in Italian
Right.
on the back. No sarò qui per sempre. I will not be here forever.
Right.
Right.
And anyway, so
I mean, the part of what sets Laura.
But can I just say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
Sorry,
No,
I
go
don't want
ahead.
to step on you.
No, you're not. You're good.
But the idea for the book, I think, if I remember correctly, is that you did a house swap with somebody with your house in Brooklyn in Italy.
That's right.
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 And did you see like the red house?
No.
Oh.
So we had done house swaps for like 20 years, and I didn't want to do them anymore because they're just a lot of work, and also you get a lot of strangers, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it's weird.
You don't know what they're going to do in your house, and you don't know what
we've
the house is going to be like.
never really had a bad experience,
Okay,
exactly. But I mean, we've had some things.
Well, it's not that much different than Airbnb, except now you have somebody in your place too.
Exactly.
Right.
And anyway, we got invited to go to this place in Italy, and I just couldn't say no. It was like beautiful, and we went. And then the daughter who lived nearby, one of the daughters, she's a lawyer. They're dear friends now. She wanted to take us to this town called Alberobello, and I knew about this town because I also have this side gig as a travel writer. And I wasn't interested in going because it's very touristy.
Oh.
But we went, it was very touristy,
Right.
and then I veered off, and I said just went and sat in this churchyard, and I'm sitting in the churchyard, and there's this tree, very little tree, and the tree has this big plaque on it, and I'm like, well, why does this kind of crummy little tree have a plaque on it?
Right.
So I went up, and it said, and it was written in 2 languages, which I happened to read. One is Italian, and the other is Hebrew.
Okay.
And it said to the people of Alberobello from the people of Jerusalem for their kindness during the racist era.
Right.
And all I could think was, what does this weird tourist town way in the south of Italy have to do with the Holocaust?
Right.
And with Jews? Because why would Jerusalem, Israel, donate this tree to this town?
Right.
And I started digging around. I couldn't find anything. And then we were going back to Italy, going back to the same place. Several years later, it was after COVID then, and I ran into my neighbor, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm leaving for Italy in an hour. I can't talk to you. And he started speaking to me in Italian, and I was like, I didn't, Anyway, long story short, his family were Roman Jews. He started to tell me this story about his life, and then I said, "Look, do you know anything about this town?" And he said, "I don't, but I took a class," and he sent me a whole bunch of articles. I'm almost at the end of this. Mm-hmm. He sent me a whole bunch of articles, and I downloaded them on the plane. And on the plane, I read that near this town of Alberobello was a detention center called La Casa Rosa, the Red House.
Okay.
And then I started looking for that building.
Right.
And it's pretty horrible. So, yeah.
Okay, so we did wind up talking a little bit because I wasn't sure if we could talk about that.
No. I mean, it's called the Red House. So, I mean, it's okay. I mean,
right.
And we're not going to give.
There's way more details about the Red Have. And
I'm not going to say more about
how it interacts
how it plays with Laura's
right.
life and that
right.
story. So that's a separate. We're going to keep no spoiler on that one.
Right.
But I did find this building, and I knew that somehow I would write about it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. They were about to turn it into a discotheque.
Yeah. So, well, they say that in the book.
Oh, yeah, right. It's in the book. That's
but
right.
But that's actually true.
It was true. They were going to turn it into a discotheque, but then they didn't
Right.
because somebody figured out that it was actually not something you should turn
No.
into a discotheque.
No, that's
Different type of history there. Yeah.
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 So I feel like you incorporate, I don't know about your other books, obviously it's the first
Right.
book of yours I read, and now
Sure.
I want to read other ones. Besides the true crime aspect to it,
Yeah.
your love of travel
Right.
also it has an impact or an influence in your writing.
Absolutely.
Right? I know you've written travel books.
Right.
But this is a novel, but I feel like you took advantage of your experiences as a traveler.
Yeah,
And
and
somebody who-
almost everything I write, there's the place is almost a character.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the Jazz Palace, which is the book I wrote kind of about my dad. Chicago is kind of a character in that
I
book.
have to read that one because
Yeah, I love that book, actually.
I was a
Yeah.
musician and a big jazz fan.
Yeah, I spent a long time on that, and
Right.
I'm very proud of that book because it's the only novel that the Jazz Times had ever reviewed. They only reviewed nonfiction, so
Right.
they reviewed that book.
Wow.
And so, the place is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't connect to a place, it's not going to work for me the same way as. And story, I'm all about story. If you want to get my attention, say to me, the most incredible thing happened to me last night, and then it better be interesting. But
How did you decide to? It's kind of like it starts in the present, but then it quickly goes back, and then you go back and forth from the present to the past.
right.
What made you decide to write it that way?
I do a lot of books in nonlinear narratives. It's just something that I've kind of I've done it a lot. I don't really know why, but somehow for me the past informs the present informs the past. And it's interesting. I've been doing a lot of research on up where my daughter has a place. It's the place where the first lynching happened north of the Mason-Dixon line, and it's near. It's in a place called Port Jervis, New York.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of reading about that area and the new novel is set in that part of the world, and I've just been kind of so. Remember the walk in Charlotte when the white supremacists are walking around saying Jews will not replace us.
Yes.
So I've been reading and learning about replacement theory because it goes so far back into post-Reconstruction.
Right.
It's and the whole history of. So anyway, I'm interested. I understood.
Which in a way is crazy because that's not that long of a history in this country at that point. Really, it's
Right.
a young country.
Right.
So replacement.
100
and it wasn't one person. I mean, one ethnic. United States from the beginning was multiple.
Right, but they
European,
talk
but-
about the kind of two like there's the Constitution for and the Bill of Rights for white people, and there's kind of everybody.
Well, true.
It's kind of a dual.
What I meant is the idea of replacing who you're not. It's not like. I mean, that should never be a theory, but it's not like a culture that's 2,000 years old and being worried about being replaced.
Right, but the Southern,
And it's such a big
Southern
country.
Confederates were so worried about this whole their lost cause and
Right.
all that. But all I'm trying to say is that something that to me was just like it's now, but then if you read about it and you realize, oh my God, it goes so far back into, yes, we're a new country, but that sort of defines who we are and trying to understand culture.
Right.
So I'm kind of a good student. You know what I mean? Like I like the history stuff. I like digging in. I like learning.
Well, there's definitely an aspect of history in this book.
Yes.
Right.
So I researched
You must.
things a
You
lot.
had to have research.
Yeah, and it was hard to research because there was not that much written about this building, and also everything's in Italian. So
Well, it's funny because I guess I'm not a history buff, and maybe I learned about it, but I was kind of surprised about the Holocaust being set in Italy.
yeah, well, that's probably one of the things that people have found the most kind of unusual about
Right.
the book is that there's this. It's such a complicated subject, Pete. I don't know if we really want to delve into it, but it was very, very different in Italy and very different in the North from what happened in the South. And I'm writing more about the South.
Right.
But you know, and overall, I would say that Italians definitely didn't have the thirst for it that, you know, other countries did.
Right.
You know, they were, I think it was really about Mussolini's pact with Hitler, and then everything kind of went to hell.
Right.
But it wasn't like they, you know, I mean, the thing that was interesting about Abelo Bello that I did learn is that the people in that part of the world, you know, Jews were deported and sent down to this part of the world, detained. You know, this like ICE detention. I mean, they're just shipped off somewhere.
Right.
And the people in that area didn't even know what Jews were. And then they realized, well, they're just people like
Right.
anybody else. And so they, you know, helped them. And that's why the plaque and the tree
I see.
and all that. So, but it's not a piece of history that people normally think of in terms of the Holocaust being, you know, the Italian side of the story.
Right.
So that's, you know.
Well, I love the, you know, so there's all this, but there's a heavy character, you know, it's novel. It's not, you know, there's the history and, you know,
Right.
somebody mentioned it, I don't think if it was you, but the thing about the true crime,
Yeah.
it's really more character driven.
Yes, I would say so. But, you know, that's like a marketing selling point, I suppose. Yeah, you know, I love characters, and when there are characters like Laura, I love what Laura. So Laura, for a living, stages real estate. You know, she's
Right.
a real estate stager, and I just kind of
And she can't leave that aside when she's in Italy.
hotel rooms and
No,
stuff.
just-
She wants to change
Right,
everything
right.
and redo it, and you know, and she also became a stager in part because when they were trying to sell the home that her mother disappeared from, I mean, it's right in the beginning of the book, they wanted to make it look like a happy house,
Right.
you know, and it wasn't a happy house. And her, so I like getting those kinds of like metaphors, you know, and letting it, like, for example, the new novel that I'm working on. So I learned that silent films, so D.W. Griffith, who kind of invented the silent film in a lot of ways, he was one of the first big
Right.
directors. Never mind what he did later with
Right.
Birth of a Nation, because that's pretty horrible.
Right.
And he did come from the Confederacy. So, but anyway, he made many films at the bottom of the hill where my daughter lives in the Catskills.
Oh.
So there's a plaque there, and there's I'm into plaques. You know, I go around,
Okay.
I photograph
Do you?
plaques.
Wow.
I do. I think they're interesting, and I'm
Right.
always interested. Like you see a plaque, and then you're kind of like. So I learned that D.W. Griffith made movies there.
Right.
And he loved the banks of the Neversink River because it's the light. He loved the light. But I started thinking about the sound of the river because I've spent a lot of time there. And what is it like for someone who makes silent films to hear the river? And like, did he want to put the river sounds in his films? So I've created this kind of metaphor around him as a character where he's thinking about what it would be like if there was sound in films. And that he falls in love with the sound of the river, but of course that doesn't happen during his time there.
Did he ever do sound?
I think so.
Oh,
I mean, he Birth of a Nation kind of killed his career, and
Right.
I don't know where that was at, and I don't know if that's still a silent film or not. But it, yeah,
I'm
it
not sure either.
didn't. It basically destroyed him.
All right.
I have to say, I'm surprised that in that period of time that people felt so strongly about, because it is about a person of color, a black man accused of, I think, assaulting a white woman, and it's about lynching. But it's like you know, I mean, in fact, it's a, you know.
Yeah, it's
yeah, like-
almost pro that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it
right,
is. And
yeah.
then he tried to do another film. I forget what it was called. That was supposed to be like a correction that showed, oh, I'm not really
Right.
that person. But his career was finished by then, and he was not respected after that.
Yeah.
So I don't really know the answer. But I've kind of gotten into his head of what would it be like if you want to hear things in films.
Right.
But I'm making it up.
Okay.
I like that stuff.
Yeah. So we, a lot of times I have my guests read
Mm-hmm.
their work. Do you think that works for you?
Sure. I
Okay.
can read a couple of short passages.
Okay.
Do you want me to read? I could read from the beginning, and then I could read a something a little bit further in?
Read what you think will be a good
Okay,
preview
I'm going to
for...
read the first couple of paragraphs, and then
Sure.
I'm going to skip and I'm going to read a page
sure.
from a little later. Okay.
Mhm.
I wake up in a motel room and realize I've been dreaming about my mother. I can't say I've thought about her that much in recent years, but since the phone call, she's been slipping back into my mind and now into my dreams. It's been a couple weeks since I listened to the message, his voice, one I haven't heard in a long time, saying, "Laura, it's Charlie Hendricks." Then he hesitated, as if he thought I wouldn't remember, as if I could forget. "Detective Hendricks, I'd like to talk to you. If you could, call me back." I listened for an inflection, some hint of why he might be calling, but there was none. What would he want after all this time? Still, his voice riveted me to the spot the way it always has. But most people's lives are a river, a flow from womb to tomb, but not mine. My life divides itself right down the middle. It's a fault line, a slice, a scar, a gully, a crack, an egg split in two. So Laura wakes up in this motel room. She's gone to Italy, trying to figure out where her mother is, or something about her mother. They know nothing about her mother. She didn't really know her mother's history at all. And anyway, so Laura decides to go, and she's trying to find something.
Right.
So she takes a ferry. So in Brindisi, which is the town, there's a little ferry you can take back and forth, and she takes a little ferry over to the residential part of the city. And she's walking along this area, I turn onto a street whose name rings a bell. It has a narrow stretch of buildings in various states of disrepair, some modern, some old, all neglected. I look at one storefront, then another. I follow my nose, and it's not long before I find myself in front of an edifice with wide balconies that wrap around and look out to the airport and beyond to the sea. I count the floors 6, and the building appears to be in the shape of a cross with 4 apartments on each floor. I'm fairly certain of what I'll find inside: a crumbling stairwell, no elevator, and residents dragging themselves up and down along with their children and groceries all day long. I should say that the mother always described the building as being in the shape of a cross, so that's kind of important.
Okay.
Shivers run along my arm, the kind you feel when a ghost is near. That's what my mother used to say when I got goosebumps. A ghost is walking by. I'm fairly certain this is the building where we live, but of course, after all these years, I could be wrong. I suppose part of me has always wondered, did she decide to come here? Perhaps she came home. Yet as I stand in front of the building, I realize how futile this is. My mother was never one to backtrack. She believed it was instinctual. Like wolves, our survival depends on moving in a circular track, or sharks moving forward. After all these years, it seems unlikely she would return. And yet, I have come. I'm 42 years old, my marriage is on the rocks, and I'm having a fling with a former client whose apartment I staged. Then Charlie Hendricks, the detective, called. I probably listened to his message 20 times before deleting it. I tried to decipher some innuendo in his words. What sense of what he was calling me for? What does he need to tell me? Couldn't he give me a hint? But his voice was flat, without inflection, the way I remembered it. I couldn't bring myself to call him back. I realized I fled. I came here. And now I know what should have been obvious to me all along. I am the same age that my mother was when she disappeared. So that's the very beginning.
Right.
Laura stumbles on this building, and anyway,
Right.
one thing leads to another, hopefully.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
I felt like reading this book, this would make an amazing movie. Have you ever thought in those terms?
Of course,
Right.
you always think that, and I think it wouldn't be a bad little a mini series,
Right.
something short, like a short, 4 episodes or
Right.
something. It's called The Red House, and there are 4 stories in the book.
Right.
And I'm trying to mimic the stories of a building.
Right.
But they're each section is in a way its own, story. And I thought, well, it could be,
Yeah.
somebody could, but no one has, so whatever.
Right.
It's I don't know, it's a funny world right now, and a couple of people have said this is a very visual book,
Yeah.
and that it should be,
Well, visual history, important history, really, as far as I'm concerned, in the world we're living in now.
Yeah,
There's lessons to be learned.
yeah.
and also very good character sense. So
Right.
it
Right.
yeah.
Right. You know, not since
But
you
who knows
brought
how to
it
get
up.
something like that?
No, I mean, I will say this because, you know, I was talking about this book in Miami not that long ago, and I was saying how, talking about, you know, people who had their citizenships revoked, they were sent into exile, they were put in detention, and I felt the room get really heavy, and I realized, my God, this book is relevant now.
Yeah, it really
You know,
is.
it's relevant in a way that I certainly didn't think when I was writing it. I thought I'm just writing history.
Right.
But people are relating to it the way you're saying because, you know, these are things that are happening before our eyes.
Right, right.
You know?
Yep.
So, yeah.
So you mentioned one of the things you wanted to talk about is your process. for
Process,
writing.
yeah.
So tell me about that.
Okay, so maybe it's because I'm left-handed. I don't know. I've never quite understood it, but I don't write in any order. And what I've told my students and what I tell other creative people is the order will figure itself out down the road. If you have a scene in your head, like a moment you want to capture, like I know the scene I'm going to write tomorrow. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to fit in with what I'm doing, but I know what I want to do. I'll just write that scene, and I won't worry about fitting it where I'm going to stick it, you
Right.
know? And then sometimes I'll find myself with like a lot of pieces. Like I'll give you one example. Like when we went to Italy for the first time to this farmhouse, I was working on a novel and I had 75 chapters of it, and they weren't in any order. And I woke up one morning really early, and this farmhouse had a lot of like sort of hidden rooms. I can't quite describe it. And there was a courtyard, and there were a lot of keys, and so I get up very early in the morning, and I would wander with a key, and I would open a door, and I
Were you afraid what you might find by?
No, not really. It wasn't like that.
Okay.
It's what's called a masseria, which is it's a walled farmhouse. It's so people would actually make wars with other farmhouses like this. So these. No, I wasn't really worried about it. I just was curious.
Right.
And, you know, one day it was a stable. The other day it turned out it was a cheese place where they used to make cheese. You know, it was kind of very
Right.
interesting. And then I came into this one room, and there was a ping pong table. Well, if you live in New York City like I do, I don't have a ping pong table in my house.
No, you
know.
need room for a ping pong
need
table.
room, yeah.
You really do.
Yeah,
or
so-
billiards.
Something like
Yeah,
that. Right, exactly. So Larry comes down, and I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm taking the net off the ping pong table. And he goes, "Oh, my God, there's a ping pong table." He goes, "It's my long-suffering husband, is Larry."
Right.
And he goes, "No, what are you doing? We need the net." I said, "No, we're not going to play ping pong. This is not for ping pong." He was
Right.
like, and I took those 75 chapters, and I spread them out all
Okay.
across the table, and I moved them around like chess pieces or a patchwork quilt. I like to think of it more as like a patchwork.
Okay.
And, you know, and what I like to say to people is just because we read from left to right doesn't mean we have to write from the beginning to the end.
No.
You can write in any order, and you could put it together later.
Right.
The other thing I do about process that
It seems like that way is more inspirational writing than like, you know, all right, I'm going to sit down and go from A to Z or whatever, or from 1
it's
to 10.
intuitive.
Yeah.
It's more intuitive than linear.
Right.
It's definitely, my process is not linear.
Are you a
Like,
good editor?
Not really. I'm married
'Cause
to a
then you
very
have-
good editor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's
Right.
my editor.
Well, you mentioned there's somewhere along I read that he read this. He reads your stuff and helps you out.
Oh
that
yeah,
way.
he does.
Yeah.
He helps me out. I mean, we have a really good.
Why don't you mention who he
partnership.
is? We're saying your
Larry
husband-
O'Connor
Right.
is my
Give
husband.
him
He's
a little
also a
plug.
writer. He's a career journalist. He's Canadian, which is really lovely. You know, we like to go to Canada,
Uh-huh.
and it's nice to have Canada in our lives.
How'd you guys meet?
He was my student at a conference.
Wow.
He drove down from northern Canada.
Ah.
He wanted to take a class in short stories, and I was teaching a class. And
How long ago was this?
38 years
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's just an amazing editor. He came to New York without a job or anything. He actually decided, he said, "I'm going to move to New York to be with you." I'm going to, he had a job in journalism up
I hope
there.
you were okay with this idea.
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
I had,
All right.
to be
Wow.
honest, I mean, I've written about this. I had a small child,
Oh.
and I was a single parent, and
I
I just
see.
said, like, I can't deal
Right.
with anything, and I can't. You're on your own.
Right.
And he said, look, if you can find me a place to stay, if you hear of anything, but I'm going to come. It's the only way it's going to work.
But
is
were
if
you
I-
interested in him in that way?
Oh yeah, I mean,
okay.
I was, but I wasn't going to move to Canada, and
Right.
and I had a baby.
And you weren't sure how he would fit into your life. That
Right,
way.
and I was
Yeah.
coming off a really not good situation, to say the least.
I see.
So I
Right.
was just trying to deal
Right.
with.
You didn't. That
having-
wasn't the last thing was on your mind. Was
Right, the last thing was
serious
having a
relationship.
guy.
Right.
Yeah, and I had a 1.5-year-old child that I was just trying.
And you were a teacher. And,
I was teaching. I was
and
writing.
You
and
had
I,
a lot.
I had a baby.
That's
and
a
I-
lot.
and
Yeah.
I needed help, and I,
Right.
and I couldn't.
You have one, or you have
One child.
Right.
I had
yeah.
one child.
Yeah.
And he said, if there's anybody, if you can find me a place to stay, let me know.
Right.
And literally, Pete, the next day, I got a knock on my door. It's my upstairs neighbor, who was an itinerant clown and mime.
Get
And
out of
she-
here.
No, she's really, that's what she did.
Wow.
And a puppeteer and things like
Okay,
that. So
right.
anyway, she knocked on the door. She had just done back from a tour of Eastern Europe, and she starts talking about her tour of Eastern Europe, and I'm like holding the baby, and I'm like, I don't know why is Ariel talking to me about, of course her name is Ariel,
Uh-huh.
And then she mentioned that she'd fallen in love with a Polish boat mechanic, and she was going to go to Poland and learn Polish, and da-da-da-da-da. Did I know anybody who wanted to rent her apartment, which was literally above mine.
Wow.
And I called Larry, and I said,
Oh, were you not a little hesitant to do that?
no, it was easy.
Right. But I mean, then that means.
He was upstairs.
But right, it could be bad too.
It could be bad.
Right.
It could have been bad,
Right.
but he wasn't living with me, and
Right. You still would have your separation.
Yeah,
And if
there
it didn't
was-
go well, so he's a neighbor you
No, it
don't
was
want to
like-
talk to.
I called him. I said it's $300 a month. It was
Right.
like nothing. It was this little like garret up on the top floor of this building,
Right.
and he took it, and
Uh-huh.
then we just started to, Then obviously we've been together ever since.
Right. So
You know.
you didn't have that far to go. You had your separate space, but you didn't have
We didn't have far to go. No,
Right. That's
no.
kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
You ever think about writing a memoir?
Well, so it's interesting. So I have written these travel memoirs about travel, but I
Right.
haven't really. And I put Larry and that our meeting and all of that into some of those books.
Okay.
I wrote a book called Angels and Aliens about when Kate was our daughter. He adopted her when she was 3. But anyway, when
Okay.
Kate
Right.
Kate and I moved to California because I had a job in Laguna Beach, and I really didn't like California. Let me just say, I'm
Okay.
a
You're New Yorker.
Midwesterner and I'm a
Right.
New Yorker,
Right.
but the car thing didn't
No,
work for
I
me.
don't think I would like that either.
I didn't
I've
like.
been there
it
a
was
bunch
very,
of times.
It was
but-
very lonely. I felt
Yeah.
very, very lonely,
Right.
and I didn't have a community. And
Sometimes I think about like we could, my wife and I could sell a house and move somewhere. It'd be a lot cheaper to live, and pretty soon we're going to be on a fixed income. But you know what? I just love the fact that where we are, we can just leave our house and walk. Like I told you earlier before, my gym is around the corner from my house. My dentist is 3 blocks away. My doctor is a 5-10 minute bike ride.
right,
Everything's
and you
just
know
so-
everybody.
yeah.
You have your community and your people,
Right.
and
I
yeah.
don't know if I'd want to live somewhere. My wife doesn't drive, and I don't think I'd want to live somewhere where the car is king. We
Right.
have to get around with the car.
No, I
Yeah.
can't stand. No,
Right.
I can't. And it didn't. I wasn't happy.
Right.
But so one day I threw my back out and I went to this chiropractor. And while I was sitting there was this stack of leaflets that said, if you're feeling lost and despairing, come to this meeting, and Ashtar, we're going to channel Ashtar, who is an extraterrestrial circling the Earth, who's going to
Wow.
give us answers.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, what the hell? I'll go to this channeling thing, and
Right.
maybe Ashtar can help me. And I got a babysitter, and I was really kind of curious about the whole California, like, kind of woo-wee thing,
Yeah.
the kind of weird stuff.
It's new agey kind of thing.
Yeah, and I started actually reading stuff about California religions, and because I got interested in it. And I went to this channeling session, and I was there were 3 people there who were all the teachers, and I was the only student. So they had me, whatever. It was a very weird experience, but they determined that I had not given birth to my daughter, that I had never really given birth to her. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, well, so who's the babysitter watching it? And like,
Right.
what
Yeah,
is that
right.
person at home? And they explained that they had some reason, and then I had to like go through a whole birthing thing with them, which was, I was just going along with it.
Right.
Not really. I was just going along with it. And then after that, I really got into it.
They didn't serve punch, did they?
No, but I probably would have drunk the Kool-Aid that time. And then I flew as an angel in the Crystal Cathedral. I posed as a New York Times reporter, and they have these angels. Anyway, I did all this crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. So Larry's in that book.
Okay.
That is a memoir.
Right.
Like meeting him and all that.
Right.
Sorry, I'm probably talking too much about random things. But,
no, not really.
Yeah. But that was a fun book to do.
Yeah. So, what's your target date for the next book? Do you have one?
I don't know. I feel like I'm having a love affair with it, so I kind of want it to go on.
Okay.
But I also am nervous that there's some parts of it that I don't know. I have a lot of material, and I kind of know what I'm doing. There are two chapters that are going to be quite historic that I need to do some research for, but I don't know. I think maybe by the end of the year I'll have a draft, and then I'll decide what I want to do.
What haven't you done as a writer that you think you might want to tackle at some point?
Well, I have desperately tried to write for film, and my daughter and I actually did. We wrote a lot of scripts together. At a certain point, we wrote
what
pilot.
Did you say what your daughter does? I don't remember.
So she's in advertising, but she's always been kind of in the film and kind of more the project development place of things. She has an incredible eye, and she's a very, very good writer.
Okay.
And she actually did a documentary about bikers that when she was 24 years old, it got her a lot of acclaim.
Bikers as a motorcycle?
Motorcycle, yeah.
Okay.
She rode across country with these 5 choppers.
Wow.
And she was the only woman, and she actually had never ridden a motorcycle. It was a long story.
Right.
But anyway, she did it. She did this film, and so she's a very good writer. And she and I collaborated for many years on stuff. And I would love to do something for film.
Right.
Or a collaboration, like my friend Michael Chabon.
Something of your own that you've done already, or something you do specifically?
I'd love
for the
someone
film?
like Michael Chabon. Now his novel, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, is now at the New York Metropolitan Opera. It's an opera.
Oh.
Like the idea of like having something of yours produced.
Right. Yeah.
And where you would actually collaborate. That is something that has eluded me, and that I would really love to do and be involved.
You got to make it happen then.
I've tried. I think I'm basically a prose writer.
Right.
And I'd certainly like books. We were talking about a little bit. I'd like more to happen with books. I think we're in a funny place in the culture for that. But in terms of my own writing and my own creative process, I also love to paint. So I do watercolors, and I do a lot of painting also.
Well, you'll have to show me at some point.
I will at some point.
Some samples.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will.
Is that your relaxing thing?
Yeah, it is.
Because I guess you love writing, but it's probably not something you relax with.
No, but you know what? It's funny. What I'm finding now, and this is really surprising me because of this new thing I'm working on, is I'm not painting right now because I think that I'm putting so much juice into the new project that I don't feel I'm not at a place where I really want to be painting right now.
Well, if you're
which is
creative,
good.
yeah, that means your creative juices are flowing. You don't need the writing, the painting to offset it. Yeah.
Right.
So
and I'm doing a lot less puzzles than I usually do.
I usually read one of my poems.
Yes, please. Love to hear one of your poems.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about whatever you think is important that we haven't talked about.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I have to think about that.
Okay. So this is called Long for Something. I wrote this. I have one book out that I wrote 3 years ago, and then we're just about ready to publish my second book, and I write everything on my phone.
Oh my gosh!
But they're poems. It's not like what you do. You really.
Oh God!
It would be hard to do that. But so poems, and they're short poems.
Yeah, I know. But it's just even writing on your phone. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
Well, I write everything by hand.
So, well, I hate my handwriting, so I
Right.
could never do that. And I don't have access to a computer very often. You
Yeah.
know, I don't work on a computer.
Yeah.
You know, and I was a chef for almost 20 years, and now I work in a cafe.
Right.
That's we didn't say how we met each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
We have to talk, that's
So
it's a funny story.
I work at a cafe, and you're a regular customer, and we got friendly to a certain extent, as friendly as the time allows, the
Right,
quick exchange. But I guess at some point
What's
you
my
asked me what I was.
What's my usual order, Pete?
You want everybody to know?
No, that's fine.
It's an iced decaf oat cappuccino,
Perfect.
and Larry gets a short, a small drip coffee with room for milk.
It's really funny.
And you don't buy pastries very often.
No, we don't buy pastries.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I guess you asked me what I was doing, and I mentioned I guess I mentioned I was recording a podcast. I think that's how this all
I
happened.
think you're talking about being a poet. And I think we talked
somehow.
about some.
Well, I must have been doing something.
We somehow went past that wall
Right.
between, barista and customer. Somehow
True.
we crossed that,
Right.
and I mentioned that I was a writer, and you said that you had a podcast, and
Right.
I
I'm
think
so
you were
glad.
a little nervous because I thought, sometimes you say that and you don't know what you're getting, and then
Right.
I brought you the book, and then you
Right.
wrote to me and said, okay, like I'm.
You picked up on my nervousness. Well, it's
Oh,
awkward
yeah.
if you don't like what somebody's doing.
Yeah, well, like what if I gave you something that was like, oh my god,
It was.
like,
I was so relieved. It was so great, and
Thank you.
It was what I needed. I was only away for 2 days, but still, it was a place where there's not that much to do. I wanted to sit on the beach and read something. It was
Right,
a perfect.
right.
Anyway, so I write it on my phone, and that means I can be anywhere and write. And in this case, I got off work, and sometimes I bike to work, but sometimes I like to get extra exercise and sunlight and everything. I do the loop around Prospect Park, which is a neighbor to us.
Of course.
To where I work and to where you live. And sometimes I take it an extra step, and you know what grounding is?
What is?
Grounding.
No.
So it's when you walk bare feet on the earth. It's supposed to...
Grounding.
Grounding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be some sort of electrical charge and help you make you feel better.
Makes your
Right.
connection better. Yeah,
So,
makes sense.
so I don't know if it works or not, but sometimes I'll get off the bike, take my shoes off, and walk down from the very top of the park all the way to the bottom, straight through the park, barefoot. And I don't know where this came from, but I got the idea for this in the park, and then I just every once in a while I would think of something else to say,
Okay.
and this came about.
Okay.
And it means not. I don't know where, really. Anyway, it's called "Long for Something." Jeannie liked sweet things, turned her nose at bitter greens or rude behavior by mean people. She liked things nice and tidy, kept her shoes in a row, her closet organized, and her books alphabetical. She kept secrets in a journal for her eyes only. She didn't share her feelings with just anybody. Being alone was a spiritual thing. She went to church every day, first thing in the morning, sitting in the very last pew. She kept to herself in a quiet studio apartment. Her neighbors rarely saw her, kept her music soft as a whisper, and lights out by 9:30. But Jeannie longed for something she couldn't describe. Perhaps a lover that would hold her, tell her life is all right. A sign from a higher power that her life had more meaning than just making money to pay bills that kept piling high. That there is grace in repetitiveness, going shopping for food, same time every day, with the same groceries in a cart. Jeannie was starting to be uncomfortable in her own skin, so she packed her belongings, she got in a car, and headed somewhere with no forwarding address, certain that she would not be missed.
First of all, I love that.
Thank you.
I don't know what that has to do with grounding, but it
No,
doesn't.
or being in the park or anything.
Or any of
I don't
it.
know where it came from.
But I will say one thing: I want to know what happens to her. See, that's the novelist in me.
You know what?
I kind of want to know. I want to know more about her journey.
Maybe I'll do a part 2.
I'm. See, I mean, I think it's very compelling. I mean, I was very into. It's a great character portrait.
You know, I have to admit that sometimes I could work harder on the ending. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because I don't even know how this comes about, where it's coming from and where it's going.
Right.
And then sometimes I have very dramatic endings, and then sometimes I just leave it open that she just needed to change and she just had to go.
Right.
And we don't know where
Right.
that was and
Right.
how it ends for her.
You know what? A little piece of advice I always tell my students and myself is that if you don't know your ending, go back to your beginning.
Right.
Because I think it begins with her just living this kind of May I look at it?
Yeah, sure.
Like Sweet Things. See, I'd almost like to see her end up somewhere and she's just the same person. You know what I mean? She hasn't gotten away from
I'm
herself.
not saying it's a finished poem. I like your idea. Maybe I'll figure that out.
I know. I feel like I want like a little beat more because I want to know
a resolution.
A little bit of what happens to her.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into her narrative and the groceries and the also I love the way you set it up and told me about it because it has nothing to do with anything you told me, and that's really great.
Right.
I mean, I love the way inspiration works. She's a good character.
Thank you. Most of my poems are character driven, stories about life, stories about people with hard times,
right?
And whether it's a disability, an addiction, a loss of love,
right?
Aging,
Would you call those narrative poems?
Yeah,
narrative
poems. Would be
narrative poetry.
Most of them, but not all of them. Yeah. So let's talk. Let's spend the last minute or two. It's not much time. Did we miss something important?
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe we should talk about. I mean, I know it's not the easiest time out there for writers and for artists in general. And I think, when people talk to me about feeling like being discouraged or being blocked, and my feeling is always, if you like it, just keep doing it.
Right.
It doesn't matter if, it kind of doesn't matter what love the process, not the product.
Right.
And that, I think sometimes we get hung up in, what's going to happen with this? And, if the last book didn't do well, was my publisher going to stay with me? Or, blah, blah, blah. And instead, I just try to get up in the morning and think to myself, what's the scene that I want to write today?
Right.
If I have a scene in my head, I'm fine. It's when I don't have anything in my head. And I always walk around with a small notebook, by the way.
Right.
And I'm always making, like Larry and I take a morning walk every morning. We had a dog, passed away last year.
Oh, sorry.
I know. Well, we've had a few dogs, but I don't know if we're going to do another dog at this point in life, and we don't want to be so tied down.
Sure.
But anyway, we still take an hour walk every morning.
In the park?
We do, in the park, every morning.
Right.
We get our coffee from you.
Yeah.
We walk
that fuels the walk.
That
That's
fuels
good
the
to
walk.
know.
We
All
walk
right.
up to the park with our coffee.
Okay.
We sometimes sit at a bench and talk a little bit, or we just keep walking.
I'm glad to find this out. Now I know there's a real true meaning in the cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah, it gets us up to the park.
Yeah.
That is literally how we
Right.
get to the park in the morning. And, it's always, do we go?
It's a great image.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, because it
I'm gonna
gives
have
you a
that image
sense
every
of,
time I see you.
right, because now you have a sense of purpose when you make our drinks that you know that we're actually going up to talk about process.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could be really down. I can be really down about stuff. And then by the end
As
of the
we all,
walk,
yeah.
we all can,
Right.
especially when we're involved in a creative process and we don't know if something's going to work out or not, or if we're any
Right.
good, or
Sure.
all of that.
Well, you still have doubts sometimes?
A story I've really yes. A story that I've always held on to was Johnny Cash, late in his life, was invited to a concert, be part of a concert venue in Germany. And it was like this crazy packed, like thousands and thousands of people. And he was backstage. He was going to go on next or something. And he heard this like crazy roaring. And he was like, and he turned to the handlers and he goes like, what are they doing?
Right.
What's going on? He said, they're calling for you, Johnny.
Ah,
And he started crying.
right.
Because he thought he was forgotten.
Well, Rick Rubin, Rick Rubin rejuvenated his career. He was forgotten.
Who did?
Rick Rubin.
Oh, okay.
Rick, he's a producer.
Okay.
Some people have their issues with him, but he started off as a hip hop, Beastie Boys,
Yeah.
Run DMC, and those
Okay.
and all that.
Right.
And then he wound up producing Johnny Cash, and it's really interesting. If he did a bunch of his albums, and that brought him back attention because he had a long stretch of really not being in it.
Right. So he
Or,
felt that he was
yeah.
forgotten, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's just like, they're calling his name, and he cried, and
Right.
he was like, or I think of Tony Bennett also. I used to go to, my editor used to have these very fancy Christmas parties, like very fancy, and like Walter Cronkite, like news people would be there,
Wow.
Mayor Bloomberg would be there, and Tony Bennett would be there. And there's actually a really funny moment
a
where
fly
our
in here, it's
daughter
driving
was
me
standing.
crazy.
I know, our daughter. We were standing in line for the bathroom, and Judy Collins was in front of us.
Get out of here.
I know.
That's a cool party.
And my daughter turns to me and she goes, "Tony Bennett's here," and I said, "Shh, Judy Collins is right there.
Yes.
Like, how's
Right.
she going to take it? You know?
Yeah.
But,
well, she would probably say the same thing, too.
Right. I
He's,
mean,
he's, a, he's a legend.
Yeah.
Not that she's not
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
herself.
I actually got this very
Because
great...
legends are psyched to meet legends,
Yeah.
you know?
And I actually leaned into him when he was having his dinner, and I said, I love your album with Bill Evans. And he goes, sit down, sweetheart.
Right.
That's
Oh,
what he
Bill
said.
Evans. Oh, my God.
I mean, and the Tony Bennett, Bill Evans thing is
I have
awesome.
I have to send you a poem I wrote.
Okay. About Bill Evans?
it was-
Anyway, I just want to finish this one.
Sure.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, we're having a great conversation. It was Tony Bennett's son who said to him, Dad, you need to, like, you're nowhere. And then that's when he started to pair up with Lady Gaga and, Bill, like really.
Amy Winehouse was one of his favorite singers of all time. And you
Exactly.
think of all the great duets he did.
That's
All
true.
the people he worked with.
That's true.
That says a
But
lot.
that brought him back.
Sure.
From
Yeah.
I Left My Heart in San Francisco.
It's great
So-
that he got that.
Yeah. So I just feel like, you have to just keep, if you love it, you keep doing it.
And maybe that's part of it for all of us, to collaborate and to be around younger people.
Right. And see, I believe in reinventing yourself also.
Yeah.
Tina Turner.
But also think about what your life would be like without what you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'd go crazy.
So I'm not like you. I didn't study writing or poetry. I was a drummer in bands, and I didn't write songs. I didn't think I could write. This is just kind of came up late in life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my life would be pretty dull without it now. It's like it just opened all these doors, like this podcast. I told you about the variety show I do. And now
Right.
I got a second book. I
Right.
meet people. I get to talk to people, creative people with talent like you. And it's so you never know when
Yeah,
something's going to happen.
right.
But
And I think we just keep, I have a friend who's an extremely gifted poet. I mean, she's won many, many major prizes, and she lost interest in it. And now she makes these crazy ceramics
right.
that are just wild, and she's happy.
But we're creatives, and we
Right.
need that in our lives.
Exactly.
There are some people that it could be something else. It could be playing golf or
Right. It could be,
whatever.
sailing. Like we have
Right.
a friend who loves to sail.
Or my wife loves gardening.
Right.
That's her other thing from besides the art.
Right. Well, I mean,
Right.
gardening to me is an art form. If
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
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 But
But
it's getting your hands dirty.
yeah, you
We
get
get
your
our
hands.
hands dirty with ink.
Right. Right.
Well, I don't. You do.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been working on this essay for like 30 years called Continuous Bloom, What the Garden Taught Me About Being a Writer, because when we bought our house, I had a garden. I mean, I suddenly had a garden, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I also had a book I was working on. I didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
And then I started realizing, you can cut anything back. You can take anything out. You can move things around. So I edited the garden the way I was editing my
That's
book.
funny.
And then it just really,
Right.
they interfaced really, really well. It's how I feel about cooking also.
Yeah.
Like I love to cook.
Right.
So
Well, I was a chef for a while.
yeah,
so,
I know. Right.
All right. So you have an engagement to go to, and we're kind of past the usual amount of time.
Okay.
So how should people find you? Social media or your?
Instagram, Mary Morris Writer. Facebook, same
You
thing.
have a website,
I have a website, marymorris.net.
right?
If you Google Mary Morris,
There's a lot. Yes.
I mean, I'm
I
not
did
Mary
Google
Morris,
you.
the actor.
Right.
I'm not there were these Mary Morris murders, but I wasn't
Ooh.
one of them who was murdered.
Oh my
Somebody
God.
apparently.
Maybe there's a story there for you.
I've thought
a short
about it.
story.
There is something called the Mary Morris murders, but that's not
Oh,
me.
okay.
I mean, I'm fine.
Right.
So yeah, I just and I love getting. I answer everything I get. If I don't answer it, it means I didn't get it.
Right.
So.
Okay. Cool.
Great talking to you.
So here it comes. There's the theme song, the guitar work of Fredo Genziano, my partner in creative outlet. I've been talking to Mary Morris. Her recent book, The Red House, is great. I highly recommend you look for it. I want to read The Jazz Palace. I'm going to look for that. Is your first book of short stories still available? Just curious. I meant to
I
ask
think
that
you can
earlier.
get anything on Amazon these days. If there's something you want, let me know. We'll work it out.
Well, I meant for the people.
Oh, the
listening.
people. Oh, yeah, everything's available on Amazon or any of the.
Other ways of
almost
buying
everything
books.
is available digitally.
Barnes and Noble,
or
whatever.
bookstores.
Right.
You can, if it's not in the store, you can always order through the stores. And if you can support your local independent bookstores, that is
that.
always good. Yeah.
Okay, so you've been listening to Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm the host, Pete Salamita, and again, I want to thank Mary Morris for sharing her life of being talented writer and teacher. So thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Pete.
And
Thanks for
thank you
having
all
me.
for listening, and we'll be back another time.